Good day, everybody. This is Gilbert Earl today, and today I would like to talk about the movies Rambo First Blood and Rambo 2 First Blood Part 2, I believe is the correct title. And basically, I want to talk about not exactly about the movies, but in general, but just how the movies portray Vietnam veterans and how the country received them in the aftermath of the Vietnam. Vietnam veterans were probably one of the on their return home were probably one of the worst received veterans that we've had in our country. They weren't very received very well, and mainly because the Vietnam War was very unpopular. When it was happening, you had people protesting it, and you had the anti-war movement, and so that also kind of play a part in why the Vietnam soldiers and when they came home weren't very well received. You will read stories about how when the soldiers left or came home, there were people protesting their arrival home. In fact, one soldier, even though he survived his duty in Vietnam, on the day that he returned home from Vietnam, he was shot by a anti-war protester. So that is one of the saddest tragedies that's ever happened. Is that we have this man who served his country over in Vietnam, and he was able to survive the war. But when he came home, he was shot by his own citizen of the United States because he went. Another thing about this is that a lot of the soldiers, some or many, I imagine many of them, really did want to go and help their country, fight for their country in Vietnam. But there were some who didn't because they were drafted into the war. And so this atmosphere of people not liking the war and going against the war and protesting the war played a part into how they were received. These veterans were received when they came home. They weren't received. Many people didn't receive them well and didn't like them. So that leads us into Rambo 1. Rambo was based upon a novel, and unlike the novel, the main character survives. In the novel, he dies at the end of the book. So spoiler alert if you're reading it, but in the movie, he survives. And I remember watching the first Rambo as a kid, and I always thought that, I enjoyed the movie immensely. And it's been a long time since I watched it. I only watched it here recently, which made me want to do a video about Rambo 1 and 2. And as a kid, I thought he killed a lot more people, but in reality, I guess he only killed one guy. But it wasn't he didn't really kill him at all. The guy kind of fell out of the helicopter, and I mean, Rainbow didn't really kill him. He kind of helped by throwing rocks at him, and the guy fell out of the helicopter. But anyways, get back to Rambo 1 is like the feeling is you have the soldier coming home from Vietnam War, or it's been years after he came home from Vietnam War, and he's trying to get back in touch with his war buddy. And on his way, he finds out that his friend had died, and so he was like the last surviving member of his unit, and so he's already kind of depressed. And he goes to a city or a little town, and all he wants to do is just walk by there and get something to eat. And he's not very well received from the sheriff. It basically tells him we don't want your kind, and that's kind of the atmosphere that many of the soldiers who were returning home from the Vietnam War received. They weren't very liked from citizens, from many of the citizens, and were kind of considered to be dangerous. And that's how Hollywood at this time, during the first Rambo, portrayed Vietnam veterans. So there was kind of like an anti-Vietnam veteran, while their predecessors, like the Korean War and World War II veterans, were highly received or respected, unlike the Vietnam soldiers. So just to put this perspective, if you're thinking about how accurate the first Rambo movie is about how Vietnam War veterans were received, it's very accurate during that time period. that they were, like I said, they were seen as being dangerous people. And also the movie does a very good job in portraying the PTSD, the stress and after effects of being in the war. We see that Rambo has these flashbacks of his memories, flashbacks of his experience over there in Vietnam, and many even today, as we veterans suffer through these and can cause them to have depression. And so, luckily for Rambo in that first movie, he has his commander who's there with him, and it kind of helps him deal with the stresses that he's having. And today, I believe that our country does a lot better job in helping the veterans when they return home, overcome and the experiences that they've had when they were over there in battle or serving in their service. Not being a military person, I wouldn't know, but But it sounds like it is, and by talking to other veterans. So, basically, going on up to Rambo 1, and going back to Hollywood, the Vietnam veterans were always seen as kind of these scary figures, and that were kind of could go off at any time, untrustworthy. And in this movie, we see that kind of explains a little bit more. It goes into detail how people reacted to these veterans. They didn't really like them. Didn't think they were good people, and that they were just there to cause trouble. So you can see the other movies that kind of go like this is Taxi. Have you ever seen the first movie House? The first House 1. It's about a Vietnam veteran and dealing with his experiences in Vietnam. And I'm sure you guys know of many other movies. So that leads us to Rambo 2, and we get more about how the veterans feel about their country. And Rambo 2, it's okay. It's not as good as the first one. There's some parts are a little ridiculous. I think it was nominated for a Razzie. I think Stallone, and then the actress who I feel like was very good but she got a Razzie for I think her first role as a leading actress. She was nominated but didn't win, probably because if I get the time period out in my head at the same time, this came out the same time as Red Sonja, and I believe what's her name, Bridget Nielsen, who happened to be married to Stallone later on, actually won that award for her role as Red Sonja. Anyways, getting back to the point. So, as in Rambo 2, there's a couple things that was going on during this time period of the country. One was the idea that there were many POWs still in Vietnam. Therefore, that's why you get Rambo going back to save POWs. And then you also get another movie like Chuck Norris's Mission in Action. He goes back. That's when this idea that there were still many prisoners or prisoners of war over in Vietnam, you started getting these Hollywood movies. But I want to really focus on the end of the movie with the speech that Rambo or Stallone gives, and not going word for word, just going to break it down. Basically, talking about how he wants his country to love him as much as he wants to love his country. And from the studies I've done, that's kind of how the sentiment that I feel was radiating off many of these veterans, that they, even though many of them were drafted, they wanted to go and fight in the Vietnam War for their country. There were, again, not all of them. There were a few who didn't want to go. They only went because they were forced to. But many of them did actually want to go and fight for their country because they believed it was the right thing. They believed that we were fighting for freedom, to help the Vietnamese gain freedom and not be controlled by a communist country. And basically in the end, Rambo makes that speech about how he wants this country to love him as much as he loves it. And at this point, it's kind of a turning point in Hollywood, and probably in the feelings that the country has for the Vietnam veterans. We got to see more movies that praised the Vietnam veterans, like I mentioned already, Mission Action with Chuck Norris, and then shortly after you had Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he's a Green Beret, and you started seeing more positive light from the Vietnam veterans. I mean, sure, you still had your movies such as Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams, and then I can't remember the movie right now. Slipped my mind, but the movie with Sean Penn and Michael J. Fox, where Michael J. Fox is kind of the good soldier and Sean Penn's the bad soldier, and they got these prisoners and so forth. But anyways, at this point, Rambo 2 kind of helped the country turn their feelings away from the negative feelings that we had from the Vietnam veterans. And until today, I believe now, if the Vietnam veterans are, and it's probably been for a few decades, and not all at once, but over a time period, I would say after Rambo 2 and probably into the 90s and such, that the Vietnam veterans are finally got the respect and that they deserved for serving their country, and they're no longer thought of as like the veterans that could be dangerous. They're no longer despised or hated. So I guess the reason I was making this video was just to talk about Rambo and how it played in the history of Hollywood, turning from Vietnam veterans are bad to Vietnam veterans are good, and that they were able to get the respect that they need and that they deserve, I should say. And also how it played a part in Hollywood, changing its direction and how they portrayed Vietnam veterans in their movies. So I hope you like this movie, and I hope you turn into next time. And until then, have a great day. Bye.